Well, good evening, everybody. We're going to start right on time this evening, so if you could find a seat, we'd appreciate it. First of all, thanks so much for coming to Calvary University and for this program tonight. We're grateful to see each and every one of you. So as we begin tonight, let's commit this evening to the Lord first, shall we? Let's pray. Father, once again, thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening and to be able to fellowship together. And then, Father, also to be able to listen and to hear what Aaron presents tonight about archaeology and the things over in Israel. Father, we're excited to hear what he has to proclaim to us tonight. And so, Father, we ask your blessing upon our time together. Thank you for each one who is here. And, Father, as we join together and learn these things, we praise you. We pray these things in Christ's name. Amen. All right, before we go any further, I would like to introduce Dwight Whitteman. Where are you at, Dwight? And he's going to have a few words to say. So come on up, Dwight. He's with Metro Voice.
Thank you very much. I want to thank, again, all of you for coming. My wife and I have published Metro Voice going on 4 decades. And you know, our history with Calvary goes back that far. And I remember starting this publication, and I was in charge of the delivery to all the churches, and I remember delivering it to the library across the street, the old library. And I'm so excited to see how Calvary has grown over these many years. And, you know, I don't think Kansas City realizes how blessed they are to have Calvary University in our fair city. So thank you all. I want to thank Calvary University for allowing us to host this event here. My wife and I, several years ago, we started something called Israel Uncharted! And we bring in speakers and we talk about issues of Israel, archaeology, scripture, the botany of Israel. And it's been a very exciting time. This is our 4th evening, our 4th event in this weekend, right? And last, this is the last one. And then we're going to say goodbye to Aaron and then welcome him again. So we do publish the Metro Voice. Now we're digitally only. And you can find information. You can go and visit our daily, it's a daily newspaper online, metrovoicenews.com. And the one thing that makes us different from all other Christian media is that we're local. And that's the main thing. And then we look at issues through a Christian worldview, not just national issues, but also local issues. And that makes us very unique in the media market, not only in Kansas City, but across the country. So I want to thank you again for allowing us to do this, and we'll see you next year, hopefully at another event, Israel Uncharted, here at Calvary. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dwight. We really do appreciate Metro Voice and all the advertising that they have done for us over the years. They've been a great partner, so thank you so much. All right, we want to get some housekeeping things out of the way first before we turn it over to Aaron. So I believe when you walked in tonight, you received a little 3x5 card. Maybe it's a little bigger than that, anyway. And if you would like to fill that out and so we can keep you updated with information that's going on here at Calvary, just put that in a brown basket as you walk out tonight. We'd appreciate that very much. Also, hopefully you received one of these. This is our next event that's coming to Calvary on March 25th, and it's called Israel and God's Plan. And what will be happening is our faculty here at Calvary will be speaking on prophecy, and so we encourage you to come to this event. It's going to be really, really good. And, of course, everybody wants to know what's going to be next, right, in prophecy? They're all asking the question, what's going to happen next? We'll come and find out, and they'll tell you as much as they know about it. So, and they know quite a bit. And so, anyway, please avail yourselves to come, and we would love to have you here. It's an all-day event, I believe, from 3, it starts at 8:30 until 3 o'clock that afternoon. So you're going to get a whole raft of things. One other event that we have coming up on March the 27th is called our Feast and Fund. And this is something we do annually to raise funds for Calvary University. and we'd really love to have you come. You can go online and register for this. You'll get a great beef dinner that night. We also have a former royal, Les Norman, who will be speaking, and then we have a silent and a live auction. And so we've been doing this for 9 years, and God has really blessed us in what we've done. We really have some unique items this year. I will just pique your interest. Last week, a gentleman gave to Calvary a donation of 9 South African Kumarans, gold bullion coins. And so we're going to auction off one of those at the auction. Now, you just go and take a look at the price of gold. I looked today, and this is a 1-ounce coin, and the price of gold today was $5,300. That's just one of the items that we have at the Feast and Fun. So appreciate if you take part in that, and just go online and register for that. So we appreciate it. I think only one other announcement before we introduce Aaron is that not only with the brown basket, we have the admissions table over there, so take note of that. If there's any information you want to take home to high schoolers or college-age kids, we'd love for you to do that. There's another white basket over there. If you are blessed tonight, we're not taking a formal offering here, but if God blesses your heart tonight and you want to help to defray the educational costs for the Calvary students, there's a little white basket there. You can just drop your gift in there. We'd appreciate it. All right, so we're ready for the main event tonight, right? So let me give you just a little bio concerning Aaron Lipkin. Aaron is an Israeli Bible scholar who specializes in the biblical archaeology of Israel and lectures in many churches, synagogues, TV, and radio stations. Aaron is also a filmmaker and has created several videos that incorporate biblical text, archaeology, the geography of Israel, and stunning drone videos. He is a member of the Manasseh Hill Country Survey Team. Did I say that right? Okay. And founded by Professor Adam Zertel of Haifa University. He is a Joshua's Altar activist, and I guess you're going to explain what that is tonight, and was involved in the finding of the Mount Ebal inscription, the oldest Hebrew text dating to the year 3300 BCE. Aaron is also a spokesman of his town, Ophrah, Jewish township in Samaria. Aaron is involved in interfaith dialogue between Jews and Christians and serves as a liaison between pastors and rabbis. Aaron was born and raised in Jerusalem, and he is married to his wife Esther right there, and he is the father of 5 children. So let's give him a big round of applause. We're glad that he is here.
Am I on? Yes. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming this cold to this evening. We come from Israel, and it doesn't get that cold, but I think it's refreshing, right? I mean, I want to thank Calvary University so much for hosting us. The main reason that I want to do that is because sometimes when I speak, especially in synagogues, and they introduce me as a renowned professor of archaeology, Aaron Lipkin. And my wife is like, yeah, right. So I'm in the university right now, and I'm teaching. So that makes me a professor. Thank you for doing that. I want to thank Dwight and Anita for working so hard on hosting us and arranging the last 4 days of lecturing. It was great to come back to Kansas City, and we're already talking about the next time I'm coming, and we're very looking forward to that. So thank you. I want to also thank Rabbi Jerry Feldman, Messianic Rabbi Jerry Feldman, for making that connection between us and Dwight and Anita. We're very good friends of Jerry and Susan. and the family, and you are also our family here in Kansas City. So thank you for everything you're doing, and I want to wish you both a lot of success now after retiring from, leading your congregation, and God willing, you'll have health and success in whatever you do. So yeah. So without further ado, let's start. So I'll speak a bit about actually I'm going to speak a lot about myself. I was born and raised in Jerusalem, Israel. And the environment I grew up in was not a religious one. I was living in a traditional family. My mom was from Cairo, Egypt. She immigrated to Israel in 1969 with her family. And my father is from Great Neck, Long Island, New York. And he also immigrated to Israel in 1969. Both of them following the Six-Day War, but for different reasons. My father came out of ideological reasons. He was part of the Beitar movement, which was a very strong Zionist youth movement. And he came to Israel. He came to learn here in the university. My mom, on the other hand, and her family, they did not want to leave Egypt. And when the Six-Day War broke, they heard a knock on the door, and there was an Egyptian police officer standing there, and he asked my grandfather, to come for a 5-minute investigation. And that turned out to be 2 years in prison with the rest of the Jewish men of Egypt. And he was tortured and humiliated. And after 2 years, the family was forcefully deported from Egypt to France. And from France, they immigrated to Israel. So my father and mother went to the Hebrew University. That's where they met. And here I am. And I grew up in Jerusalem, traditional home. We believed in God. We loved the Bible. My parents bought me an animated series of the Bible as a kid. And I remember reading it and enjoying the stories. But for me, they weren't just fairy tales. They were the history of my people and the history of my faith. And so when I read about, Abraham standing on Mount Moriah with Isaac, or when Ezekiel is seeing the amazing revelations, I was standing there with them, experiencing what they were experiencing. I really loved the Bible. And so when I went to school in Israel, I went to a secular school because we weren't a religious family. And in elementary school, we had a Bible class. And I loved Bible class because I already read the Bible. So I aced all the exams. And then when I moved to high school and we had Bible class in high school, that was the first time that I met a way of teaching the Bible that was so foreign to me. I came into class and my teacher said we were going to learn the book of Genesis. And we sat down, and instead of teaching us the book of Genesis, she taught us that the Bible is a book of fairy tales, that the stories in the book of Genesis are actually pagan myths from Assyria and Babylon, and this was taken and manipulated and to fit monotheism. And I was sitting there as a kid and was totally shocked by what my teacher in this Jewish school in Jerusalem, in the land of Israel, is telling me. And so this is we were taught about the documentary thesis and the different parts of the Bible and how it's dissected. And I'm sitting there in class with the rest of my friends who were mostly secular atheist Jews that did not come from homes that had faith in God and faith in the Bible, and that was their encounter with the founding book of their people, their identity. And I'm telling you this, but every time I talk about it, I get high blood pressure because, seriously, I mean, how can you teach something like that in a Jewish school in Israel to the Jewish people? It's to tell them that your whole identity is a lie. Anyway, we finished high school, and I moved to I went to the Army, 3 years in the intelligence corps, and I did some really neat stuff there, really, really interesting. And then during that service, I met my wife, Etty, who was a soldier at the Army base, and she fell in love with me. And then she proposed, and I said yes, and we got married. And by the way, every time we go to churches, she comes up to the podium, and she starts preaching to the girls not to be bashful, and to find a man and go for it. So that's yeah. Anyway, so we finished the Army and got married and moved from Jerusalem to the biblical heartland of Israel, Samaria, to a town called Ophrah. Today we have, as I said, we have 5 children. The oldest is 25. We actually served this past war, the last 2 years in Israel. Believe it or not, I did 730 days of reserve duty in intelligence. So it was, again, very interesting, but I thank God that I was able to do that and help my country, my people. In the year 2006, I walked in the streets of Jerusalem, and I saw an advertisement for a lecture by Professor of Archaeology Adam Zertal. And the topic was the discovery of Joshua's altar by Professor Adam Zertal. And I knew at that time that the main academic view of the historicity of the early books of the Bible is that they are either invented or not very accurate, so to say, and that they were written not at the time that they happened, but actually hundreds of years later. And so when I stood in front of that advertisement and I saw that the professor of archaeology is going to be talking about Joshua's altar, I was surprised. It couldn't go together. How can a professor talk about a biblical structure that's described in the Bible? So I went to hear Professor Zertal, and I really remember that meeting, being there at the hall and hearing his presentation. And at the end of that presentation, I was so connected to him, and I admired him so much that we started becoming in touch with each other. I actually brought him to speak to our groups in Israel. We are also a travel agency, and so we bring Christian groups to Israel, and he actually came to the hotels and gave lectures in the evenings about his discoveries to our groups. Let's see if this works. So I'll say a few words about Professor Zertal. He was born and raised in the kibbutz called Ein Shemel, which means that he was atheist and socialist and probably also left-wing. And he served in the Israeli army and was wounded in the Yom Kippur War. While he was in the hospital, they asked him, "What are you going to do?" And he said, I want to be an archaeologist. And they looked at him, and he's wounded, you can't walk, how are you going to be an archaeologist? But he was persistent. And so the professors actually came to his hospital bed and taught him archaeology, and he finished his degree. And in 1978, a project, an emergency survey of Samaria and the Jordan Valley was declared, and he was actually given a certain area to survey, to map in the Jordan Valley and inside Samaria. We're going to be talking about that survey in the next hour or two, but you have to keep in mind that Adam, when surveying, would actually walk with his crutches for miles upon miles. And I have to stop here for a second. This is a strong man. I mean, to walk for literally tens of thousands of miles from 1978 till almost the time he passed away in 2015, is truly admirable. And what his team did was basically to survey. What does it mean to survey? It means that they walk. And while they're walking, they're looking for ancient sites. And when they get to a certain place and they see that there are ancient remains, walls, pottery, bones, coins, anything that's on the ground, they open the map and they mark the different findings that they see. And so what you do is you create a map of all the ancient sites that are in a certain area and the approximate dating of that site. Why is that important? It's important, first of all, because if you're an archaeologist and you want to excavate a certain time in history, you have a map. You want to go to sites from the Roman period, you're looking at the map and you're looking for sites with activity during the Roman period. It's also very important because it gives you a general understanding of what happens in a certain area. So if you have hundreds of thousands of people moving from one place to the other, it's hard to see it when you excavate a specific site. But if you map an area, you can actually see a process happening. And that's one of the achievements of an archaeological survey. So Adam Zertal is heading the Manasseh Hill Survey, and we're going to discuss his findings that for me are amazing, and I hope that by the end of this lecture will be amazing for you as well. Adam Zertal passed away in 2015, and just before he passed away, I remember just maybe a few weeks before, we actually had a phone call with each other, and Adam, I told Adam that he really needs to publish his books in Kindle and make ebooks out of them, and I heard this silence on the phone, and then Adam said, "Aaron, I'm just the professor. I don't know how to do these things. You need to help me." And I did. That was his last request for me, and I said yes. And so for the last 10 years, I've been working as part of the Manasseh Hill Survey. I'm in two positions. One as the foreign minister, so I come to lecture in churches and synagogues, in universities, about this discovery, and the second thing I do is I am the drone photographer of the Manasseh Hill Survey, and every time that Dr. Shai Bar in the green shirt, who is the student of Adam Zertal and leads this important project even now, calls me and says, "Aaron, we just finished excavating or surveying a certain area. We need you in the drone." And then I come, I say to my wife, it's usually a Friday, I say to Etty, I can't help you with cooking and cleaning the house for Shabbat. I have to go for research and science, and so she obviously lets me do that happily. And so I disappear from around 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, and I drive down to the Jordan Valley or Samaria and walk around with Shai. And this survey is really important. There were several volumes that were published by the Manasseh Survey, both in Hebrew and in English. And each volume of the survey actually covers a certain area inside the Jordan Valley or the Manasseh tribal land. I'm sure if you check them out on the internet, you can actually purchase the English version. It's on the one hand, you just have sites upon sites and the survey results, but I'm sure that you'll enjoy them and you'll learn from them after this lecture and after my explanation. So let's continue. This is a picture of Adam and the crew going through pottery shreds that they found during the survey. Adam and his crew would walk, again, miles and miles. This is a picture of the crew from several years ago. And we have people that are young archaeology students at the age of 24, 25, and people that are in their 70s and maybe even 80s. And so really, it's a very, very, it's a very blessed group to be part of. So I want to talk with you about the results of the survey in terms of a certain period of time in our history, and that is the time of Joshua, the time of the judges, all the way to Samuel and even later than that. This is a time that is called in archaeology the late Bronze Age and the early Iron Age period. So I'm going to be using that terminology now and then, but you'll get acquainted with that. And so let's talk about the first survey achievement. One of the claims of the archaeology in most universities is that there is no proof for the conquest of Canaan by the Israelites as it's told in the Bible. In other words, a group of people that are entering Canaan from the east to the west in the area of Jericho, conquering Jericho and then going and advancing inward and conquering more cities. Archaeologists actually went to the area of Jericho to look for any kind of finding that would show an invasion of hundreds of thousands of people around the year 1300, 1400 BC. And they did not find any proof for such an invasion. Now, you know, if you're a Christian archaeologist and you don't find proof, then you say to yourself, you know, maybe during the ages it was taken down or eroded or so on. But when you're an atheist archaeologist from Europe in the 1970s or 80s, you say, of course, there's no proof for an invasion of the Israelites. It never really happened. It's all an invention. And so that's basically the dynamic. No proof, didn't happen. Now, Adam Zertal, you have to understand, was raised and educated in the Tel Aviv University. The Tel Aviv University is probably the center of that archaeological minimalism school, saying no proof, it didn't happen. And so when Adam Zertal is surveying the Jordan Valley, that's the mindset that he has. He's not looking for anything biblical because it wasn't supposed to exist. He's going into the field just documenting and mapping. And so what they did, they received a certain area in the Jordan Valley that starts from the, is there a laser thing here, Daniel? Okay, doesn't show up. So I think there's a laser thing in the backpack where Daniel is, so if you can bring me. So you can see that the dark brown is basically the area that Adam Zertal is mapping, and the tip down there is I would say the area of the Jordan Valley that is north of Jericho. In other words, Adam Zertal is not in the area of Jericho. He is probably about 7 or 8 miles north of Jericho, and he's basically mapping the Jordan Valley from south to north. And what he is finding, he's finding obviously many ancient sites dating from the Chalcolithic period to World War I. Okay, lots of human activity going on there. But what he's finding is very interesting. During the time of the late Bronze Age in the Jordan Valley, what he sees is that the area is totally empty. There is no residence, there are no settlements of humans in the Jordan Valley. Now, this area that you see here is not Jericho. It's not the area of Jericho. This is probably around 20 miles north of Jericho. Okay, now, when they're mapping the area, they see that when moving from the late Bronze Age to the early Iron Age, suddenly hundreds of percent rise in the settlement in that area. Okay, now you have to understand, archaeologically, this is a revolution. This is a major shift in the reality in the Jordan Valley. Okay? Thank you. A professor has to have a laser. Yeah, but the laser is not so, anyway, okay. So, this is another area. You can see, again, late Bronze Age, you have only that white spot up there, and then, boom. You see the difference? Okay? Now, Adam Zertal is faced with this major change, major shift of settlement in the Jordan Valley during the move from the late Bronze Age to the early Iron Age. And he's trying as an archaeologist to explain how that happened. What he does is he checks the pottery and he sees that the pottery, the pottery actually starts in the area of the Jordan Valley, the making of the pottery of the vessels, and then the vessels gradually change as they move from east to west into Israel. So there's definitely an east to west movement. And then another thing he says is that there is no other explanation for this sudden appearance of settlements in the Jordan Valley aside from an invasion from the east. Now, obviously this resonates in his mind, okay? What does the Bible say is happening during that time? But let's continue. Another thing that Adam Zertal in his survey find, let's stop here for a second. You remember all those dots on the map? That's how it looks like. We're talking about sheep pens that are circular, made out of stone. The sheep and goats would be kept in that circle, and then the tents would be built around the stones. So you would find pottery only outside, not inside. Inside is where the animals were. And so what we have here is it's called in archaeology, semi-nomadic dwellings. Okay? Aside from these dwellings, the survey also finds something else. They find several huge stone structures that appear in the Jordan Valley and in Samaria. Now, three of them, three of these structures, I'm talking about football-size structures. It's not these small sheep pens that you saw. We're talking about people investing a lot of energy in those structures. And three of these structures are actually situated north of, I'm going to show this to you here. So we have three of these structures in the Jordan Valley. Now notice this is the Dead Sea. Jericho is over here. And according to the Bible, the Israelites invaded in this area. Now, Adam Zertal finds all the human activity, the inflation of residential dwellings in this area, and he finds three of the huge structures over here in this area. Now, how can we solve that problem? If we are indeed talking about the invasion of the Israelites into the land of Israel, how do we solve this problem of the Israelites crossing in Jericho according to the Bible and a clear archaeological proof of some sort of an invasion north of that area? So if we look closely at the Bible, and this is what Adam Zertal likes to do, we see that the miracle, remember that the Israelites are crossing the Jordan after a miracle. The water of the Jordan stopped flowing, right? Where do they stop flowing? Very good. People think that they stop in Jericho. No, the verse in the Bible is very clear. The water from upstream stopped flowing. It piled up in a heap a great distance away at a town called Adam, in the vicinity of Zerathan, while the water flowing down to the sea of the Arabah, the Dead Sea, was completely cut off. So the people crossed over opposite Jericho. So we have actually a clear verse that talks about the water of the Jordan stopping not in Jericho, but right here, where Adam is. Okay, Adam is identified with the Jordanian, today in Jordan, a place called El Damya, Tel El Damya, Adam. And so this area actually was, the water stopped here, and the water of the Jordan drained and allowed the Israelites to cross at any point from Adam southward. Isn't that amazing? Suddenly the Bible, sorry? Oh. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm a professor now. The actual the archaeology starts to fit the verses in the Bible. Now, but we have to ask what happens then in the area of Jericho? Where did the archaeological evidence go? So, ask me that question at the end. Okay, so let's focus on these weird-looking oval-shaped structures that I just mentioned. So this is the Tirzah Valley. The Tirzah Valley is, one second, this is supposed to be a video, there we go. The Tirzah Valley is the ancient road leading from the area of the Jordan Valley up to the city of Shechem. So when we read, for example, about Jacob crossing the Jabbok Pass, remember he fought with the angel, from Jacob became Israel. So he crosses the Jordan, he meets Esau, and then after the meeting with Esau, he's walking where? To Jericho, to Shechem, with his family. The route from the Jordan Valley to Shechem goes through the Tirzah Valley. And so the three structures that I'm going to be talking about now are actually located, one smack at the opening of this valley, and two others on both sides behind the ridges that you see here. We'll talk about that later. Okay. So Adam Zertal called them foot enclosures, and the reason why he did that is because one of them clearly is very similar to the way the right foot looks like, and you're going to see that. So first of all, the first foot structure that was found was in 1980. This was found by Adam Zertal on Mount Ebal in Samaria. This is how it looks like. And what you see here is the outer wall that has a certain way of the way that it goes, and it doesn't fit the geography in that area. There's also an inner separation right here, and stairs leading from this area all the way up to this area, and also some sort of a sacrificial platform. Here's another structure that was found in the Tirzah Valley. Again, an oval-shaped, inside it has inner divisions and some sort of a sacrificial platform. This is another look at it from a different angle. This is the structure that I spoke about in the Jordan Valley, and you can clearly see that it has the shape of the right foot. Also, again, inner division and some sort of a sacrificial platform. Another thing that is very common with these structures is that they have an adjacent slope. Why is there an adjacent slope to this structure? Adam Zertal theorized that that would probably have been the amphitheater on which the locals would stand or would sit down and watch the ceremonies happening inside here. This is my Land Cruiser, and I put the drone on automatic mode. And what I'm going to show you now is, first of all, this is the Jordan Valley. The Jabbok Pass is right here. And so when we talk about the Israelites entering, and we're talking about the settlement activity, we're talking about this area right here. Now, I'm going to be parking my Land Cruiser in a minute, and you will see the other side. And the other side, this is a modern structure. Don't look at that. You see the foot structure right here. Do you see this? And you see the slopes that are adjacent to the structure itself. Now, we're not talking about a structure like the pyramids, okay? It's not this huge, magnificent structure. This is a very simple structure, a wall that is this high. It's right, just like, 2 feet maybe, that's made out of stones, and the stones are on that. So it's not a military structure. Everybody can pass it. It's not a sheep pen, because sheep pen are much smaller, and you wouldn't invest so much energy in building such a huge structure in a certain shape and so on. And so that really becomes, for Adam Zertal, a big mystery. This is a footage from top, from like 90 degrees. And I don't know if you can see it, but right here, we have 2 stones apart, 2 stone walls apart, and here the stones are stuck to each other. Adam Zertal called this part of the foot, I would say, called it the heel, a procession road. In other words, 2 rows of stones, pebbles in the middle, and you would actually walk around. Okay, let's see that. Also, you see that thing. That's the sacrificial platform. This is how it looks like. We excavated this platform to try and date it just maybe 6 or 7 years ago, and this is dated to the early Iron Age period. There were actually vessels inside, so it was very, very easy to date this. And so when the outer compound was built, they also built this structure. They're from the same period. This is me and Etty, and I just wanted you to kind of get an understanding of how things would have looked like for the people standing inside the structure and the people that would be viewing it from the slope. Now this is me. Now at this part, Etty is, I'm hot, I'm going to the car, and I said, give me a few minutes. So Etty's leaving me. Sorry, Etty's leaving me. She's going to the side, and I'm starting to walk on an ancient, sort of like a platform where you would convene, and then I'm going into the heel of the structure where you have 2 stones on both sides, and this is what Adam Zertal called the procession road. So whoever built this built a road that you would actually be walking through as part of the action that was being done there. What do you think? You like it? Yeah. Anyway, so you understand, you have a good visual. So Adam Zertal is trying to understand what these structures are. What exactly, what did they serve? And as we said just earlier, they're not these sheep pens that we saw that they already knew and found. They were not military structures because it's very easy to cross it. And another thing that's interesting is that the walls were very low, so there's the only reason why you would put them is to mark something. And so Adam Zertal believed that the action that these structures served was a one of religious or spiritual one. So, it was built during the late Bronze, early Iron Age period. It was used for around 600 years. So we're talking about from around the year 1300 all the way to the destruction, the Assyrian destruction of the northern kingdom around the year 722 BC. And the people that ruled over that area during that time, guess what, were Israelites. So, Adam Zertal couldn't run away from it. So he said, I have to investigate, I have to understand where does this foot-shaped structure come from. Here's another beautiful aerial footage of a very talented drone photographer. Okay, now by the way, this compound right here was also excavated. Adam Zertal thought that this was probably the holiest spot in the structure, but it's actually from the Roman period. It's like 1,300 years later. So imagine it's not there. This is another structure, also in the Jordan Valley, that was found in Masu'ah. Another structure at Yafit. This structure actually has a procession road going all around. In other words, it's not just in the area of the heel. The people that would use it would actually go around it. This is archaeologist Dror Ben Yosef, Dr. Dror Ben Yosef, excavating the procession road of the Yafit structure. So what do we have? What are the characteristics? It's a foot or oval-shaped structure, procession road, inner division. We have a sacrificial platform of some sort. We have an amphitheater watching over the foot structure. Some of them look eastward, and it's in use all during the time of the Israelite rule over that area. So Adam Zertal got to the conclusion that these are Israelite worshiping sites. There's no other archaeological explanation to it. And I have to say that today the archaeologists agree with Adam Zertal about this fact. The fact, not that it's Israelite, but everybody agrees that these are worshiping sites. Why are they in the shape of a foot? And do these enclosures appear in the Bible? What does an archaeologist do when he finds these types of structures? First of all, try to look for parallels. So he's going to the libraries, he's looking at structures in Babylon, in Assyria, in Lebanon. He cannot find anything that has any important symbol to the symbol of the foot. But when he goes to Egypt, that's when things start popping, okay? Why Egypt? I don't know. So let's see. This is a letter that was written by the king of Jerusalem to Pharaoh. And he starts the letter by saying, "To the feet of my Lord I shall fall multiple times." Okay, this is showing that the Pharaoh is greater than me. Okay, this is subjugation of some sort. At your feet, I will scatter the enemies at your feet. So this is ruling or conquering or being victorious over the enemies of Egypt. Here's a picture from the temple of Amenhotep II, and what we see is very interesting. We see that the legs of Pharaoh are over the heads of the captives of the enemies of Egypt. This is enlarging it. So we see Egyptians, Nubians, and other nations. These are the sandals of Tutankhamun, and what we see are the bows representing the people, the foreign peoples, and we see two captives with their hands tied behind their back, and Pharaoh would walk with these sandals, and by walking on these sandals, he would, in a way, spiritually show how Egypt is superior and how Egypt is conquering these peoples. Tutankhamun's like footstool, same thing, the bows. So he sees that in Egypt, the feet of Pharaoh, who was considered a god, had an important meaning in Egypt. And so there's an interesting connection between that civilization that builds these foot structures in the Jordan Valley and Egypt. Weird, right? What's the connection? Where do we see the symbol of these structures, of the symbol of the foot, the importance of the foot in the Bible? And so Adam Zertal opens the Bible and he starts going through the verses to see where does the word foot appear and what does it mean. And so he sees that we have 4 types of meanings: ownership over territory, the existence of the people, victory over enemies, and the symbol of God and the temple. So let's just see a few examples. Ownership of territory. This is in Deuteronomy, which is exactly the time we're talking about, the time when these structures are being built. Do not provoke them to war, for I will not give you any of their land, not even enough to put your foot on. I have given Esau. This is another verse. Every place where you set your foot will be yours. Your territory will extend from the desert to Lebanon and from the Euphrates River to the Mediterranean Sea. So the foot, again, has some sort of in the context of conquest, of ownership of the territory, and so on. This is the existence of the people. I will not again make the feet of the Israelites wander from the land I gave their ancestors. I will not again make the feet of the Israelites leave the land I assigned to your ancestors. The foot is very important. Victory over enemies. You know that because of the wars waged against my father David from all sides, he could not build a temple for the name of the Lord his God until the Lord put his enemies under his feet. Remember Pharaoh with the feet on the enemies? And the symbol of God and the temple. The glory of Lebanon will come to you, juniper, the fir, and the cypress together, to adorn my sanctuary, and I will glorify the place for my feet. Exalt the Lord our God and worship at his footstool. He is holy. So we definitely see that the Bible sees the foot also as a symbol. It's not just an Egyptian thing. This is in the Bible. By the way, I'm warning you, from now on, after this lecture, every time you'll read the Bible, the word foot will suddenly, okay? I'm just warning you. It happens to everyone. And the next question is, do these worship complexes appear in the Bible? I mean, again, we're talking about structures that existed for hundreds of years. They're huge, lots of energy invested into building them and obviously operating them. So that if they're definitely Israelite, they have to appear in the Bible. So Adam Zertal opens the Bible again, and he tries to look for any type of, again, ceremonial structure, worshiping structure of the Israelites that appear in the Bible around the time of Joshua and the Judges. And he sees that there is a constant name that reappears in the Bible, and that is Gilgal. Now, if you asked me 20 years ago, what is Gilgal? I will tell you that it's a place near Jericho where Joshua and his army convened, circumcised the men, and got organized to attack Jericho. Now, what we saw are several foot structures that are spread out in different places in Israel. So how is that possible? Could that be Gilgal? But when Adam Zertal looks at the Bible, he sees that Gilgal is not the name of a place, but rather Gilgal appears in several distinct places in the land of Israel. So I'm going to show that to you now. We have the Gilgal of Joshua, Gilgal on the plains of Jericho that I just mentioned. But we also have at least two more Gilgals that are in a different place. We have the Gilgal mentioned near Elon Moreh, near Shechem, in Deuteronomy 11:30. And we have another Gilgal that is mentioned on the border between the tribe of Benjamin and the tribe of Judah, called Gilgal Ma'ale Adumim. So we see that there are Gilgals in different distinct places that are not necessarily Jericho. So Adam Zertal says, okay, if that's the case, then it's possible that we have several structures in different places that could be Gilgal. If I'm right, then I will be able to find another foot structure near the area of Ma'ale Adumim, the Pass of Adumim. Okay, we have a scientist, we have a theory, we have to prove it. Adam Zertal does something that he hasn't done before. Because Adam, how does he find sites? He walks with his crutches, and he's looking for ancient sites. This time, there's no time, because I have a theory, and I'm really excited about it. So Adam Zertal decides to look at satellite footage. He brings satellite footage, he puts it on his table, and he starts to look very carefully for anything that reminds us of the other structures that he found. You think he found it? He finds another structure, not by walking and mapping, but by theorizing and identifying these structures with biblical Gilgals. And when he sees it, he is totally stunned. Okay, this is what he writes in his book. I leaned back and my heart literally skipped a beat. This is what happens when an unknown desire, a hidden hope, a dream comes true. Before my eyes appeared the sight of a sandal or a foot, the shape of which was impossible to ignore. I sat in front of the computer, zoomed in and out of the image, and the new thing did not disappear. No, this is not a mistake, neither a dream nor a hallucination. Adam Zertal proved that these structures are indeed the biblical Gilgals. Isn't it that amazing? This is the structure. This is the archaeological sketch of the site, and this is my drone footage of that site. And this is actually very close to where I live. This is near my town, Ofra. It's near another Jewish town called Rimonim. So we have several foot structures. They're identified with Gilgal. We understand the importance of this foot structure shape, of the importance of it to the Israelites. And we are left with another question. What about the effect of these structures on the Hebrew language? Okay, Adam Zertal sees the foot structure appearing clearly in these structures, and he's saying, does it have any other types of effect? Now I'm going to show you something really interesting. First of all, how do you say the word feast in Hebrew? Chag. Chag, okay, you want to say happy holiday, Chag Sameach. Chag, the literal meaning of the word Chag is to circle. Okay? What did we see in those foot structures? Procession road. Okay, so when we say Chag Sameach, we actually say happy circling. But we don't understand that way because we just say it's just a figure of speech, so we say Chag Sameach. Another interesting thing is that the word feast in Hebrew is called regel. Regel in Hebrew is foot. Okay? The three feasts, Passover, Pentecost, and Tabernacles, are called the three regalim, the three legs. Now, we don't think about it when we say it, but that's what it means. How do you say pilgrimage in Hebrew? Aliyah laregel, which means going up to the foot. Again, we don't think about that when we say it. It's a figure of speech, but that's what it means literally. So we actually have an interesting, now we understand what the source is. This is a video of a Yemenite synagogue during Tabernacles. So you can actually see that we are actually still going around. This is part of our ceremonies in our day-to-day spiritual life in synagogues. You can see the four species. So, conclusion, the foot structures shed light on the beginning of early Israelite worship and religion. They give us a better understanding of the Bible and the meaning of the shape of the foot. And we have to ask ourselves if these foot structures are so important and they actually are in the life of the Israelites during the time spanning from the book of Joshua all the way to the destruction of the northern kingdom, then the question is, what about Jerusalem, right? I mean, Jerusalem was founded by King David. It's the same time that we're talking about the foot structures, right? What you see here is a theorized map or model of Israel, of Jerusalem in the first temple period. This is the city of David. I'm sure that those that have visited Israel went to the city of David. This is the original Jebusite Jerusalem, and this is the extension of King David and King Solomon and the temple that was established on the top of that mountain. And surprisingly, it looks like a foot. These are more pictures that I took in the Bible Museum in Israel. So we actually see that there is a seventh foot. Maybe there are more. So this is, again, one of the interesting finds of Adam Zertal, and you can read more about that in his books. Before I move on to the next discovery, which is probably, for me, the most important discovery, the discovery of Joshua's altar, do you have any questions about this presentation? Yes?
Can you tell me about the dimensions as far as feet, yards, meters of the structure itself, stone size, weight, acoustics? What was the acoustics like in the area? If people were going to watch, would they be able to hear?
Yeah. So size-wise, the sizes vary, the structures themselves, the sizes vary. They could be the length could be as big as this hall. This is probably the smallest. And the largest, like the one in Argaman, where you have a clear foot structure, is more like a football court. I don't know the sizes exactly, just for people to understand. The stones themselves are maybe 1 feet by 1 feet on the floor. And again, that varies. It could be bigger, it could be smaller. But I have to say that when you're standing there, you can see how much energy was invested in bringing these stones and putting them not just on the top of the ground. They actually dug and put them sunk inside the ground. So they're 1/3 sunk and two-thirds above the ground. The acoustics are also vary because sometimes you have a clear distinction between the amphitheater and the foot structure, which is actually located at the lowest place. And you have other places where that distinction is not so extreme, so the acoustics would change. The question is if the acoustic component was important in those ceremonies. I assume that in some foot structures they were, and others they weren't. When you look at the Bible, you see that the activity that was done there was mostly of not just of worshiping, but of national events. For example, King Saul was crowned in Gilgal, and military campaigns started from Gilgal. In other words, the army would convene, sacrifices would be sacrificed before going out to fight against the Philistines, for example. So I don't know how much of the acoustics were important and more of the visual, of seeing the sacrifice itself and what the priesthood or the prophets would do at that place. Yes?
Do you know the etymology of the word Gilgal? I mean, can you give any
So,
background on it?
so Gilgal means two things. It means round. And if you opened a dictionary, a Hebrew dictionary, and you would look for more meaning, it would be a circle of stone. That's what the dictionary would say.
As a follow-up, is it possible that these sites were used later as Israel turned to idols, that they were used for idol worship?
Yes,
And is there any evidence?
definitely. Gilgal is also described in the Bible, and not just as a good place, but also as a bad place, a place of pagan worship. Also, there's another thing that Adam Zertal wrote in his book. There is a story that I don't know how many of you remember. It's in the book of Judges, and what we have is the tribes that have their lands on the eastern side of the Jordan River, and after they finish their mission of conquering the west side of the Jordan River, as promised to Moses, they are going back to their lands in the eastern side of the Jordan River. And before they do that, they build an altar where in an area called Gelilot, okay, in the Jordan Valley. This is before passing the Jordan Valley and going to their lands. Now Phineas, the high priest, hears about that, and he's very angry because they already have Shiloh as the central place of worship, and he sees that altar as a threat to the centralized worship of Shiloh. So there's almost a civil war that erupts, almost, and he sends an envoy over there to ask them, what are you doing? And they said, this is not an altar, this is a memorial. And we're building this memorial to remind the Israelites on the west side that the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is also our God. In other words, they're afraid that the Israelites on the west will kind of disown them from their spiritual inheritance. So Adam Zertal writes in his book that he believes that the Argamant structure is actually something that started out with them building that memorial. So it's not pagan, but also it's kind of like problematic in the eyes of Phineas. Susan.
So, would the tabernacle fit inside that foot?
So Adam Zertal thought that, remember the foot structure, and it had the area that I said was Roman, for the Roman period. So Adam Zertal thought that was part of that structure, and that the tabernacle was actually situated there. And as we proved, this stone wall is actually from the Roman period, but he actually excavated to check if there was any type of evidence that would suggest the tabernacle being there. But there is, however, another interesting verse in the Bible. I believe it's in Psalms 78. There is a psalm that describes the history of the Israelites. And upon the destruction of Shiloh by the Philistines, remember the story with Samuel and Eli and the Ebenezer and Aphek battle with the Philistines. So the Psalm 78 says, I destroyed the tent of Shiloh and moved it to the heart of man. That's the English translation. In Hebrew, the parallel to Shiloh is Adam. Okay, so Adam Zertal is saying it's not Adam as a human or the heart of man. Adam is the name of a place because it parallels Shiloh. And so the tabernacle, Adam Zertal thought, was probably moved from Shiloh to one of those foot structures in the Jordan Valley, and later on moved to Nov and Gibeon in the time of King Saul. So that's another theory. Yes, sir.
Period you were talking about, the stones look to me like they were just natural stones. Do you know if there was any tool used on those stones? And the reason I'm asking is, in the parts of like Egypt and even in China, when I was in China, I went as far back as I could in these ages. Most of the stones that I saw, as ancient as they were shaped stones. They were quarried stones, just like in Egypt. But these are not quarried, it doesn't look like.
Natural stones.
So they're natural, just like God said, you're not to put a tool on
Exactly,
the stone.
exactly. We're going to talk about that when we talk about Joshua's altar.
That's interesting to me.
Yes.
Because I've seen these stones all over the world, and they all have a tool on them.
Right.
Those did not.
Natural stones. Everything is natural stones. Yeah. Last question from an archaeologist. Oh my God. Yes.
No, don't worry. I just want to add to it. You also find some parallels with food in Hittite culture, in Dara, for instance.
Mhm.
And then you have some of the black obelisks, for instance, you see Yehu buying down to the food. So you have
In Egypt?
no, in
In
Mesopotamia.
Mesopotamia.
Yeah, you have the Assyrians. So there's all the parallels all over the place about
Of food structures?
not food structure, but
Ah.
about food being used as a symbol.
As a
of
symbol.
royalty or divinity.
Yes, Adam Zertal says that there's actually, I think, temples in Lebanon where you have the engraving of a foot at the entrance to the temple.
Yeah.
I think he mentions that.
That's in Dara.
Yeah.
You have these huge footprints and then wand to imply that the deity is actually walking
Into the temple.
Yeah. So unfortunately, it was destroyed by a missile recently. But anyways.
Yeah.
But
That happens in our area.
My
Yeah.
question is, do you find one of the debates in archaeology is what we classify as cultic, right? I mean, if you find all their use, put it into cultic. So my question is, in your excavations, doing the excavations, do you guys find any artifacts or anything that might suggest what kind of cultic activity took place in these sites?
Yeah, so we're going to talk about Joshua's altar in a minute, and that's clearly a site a sacrificial site with bones and ashes and offering installations and so on. We'll talk about that. The Argaman foot structure, for example, the sacrificial platform that you saw, that circular, actually did not contain any bones or ashes. As I mentioned earlier, they contained early Iron Age cooking pots. They did find bones in that area. So Dr. Shai Bar, the student of Zertal, believes that this was not an altar in Argaman, but rather a bama, a high ground. Yeah. And then the rest of the foot structures, there are. I don't know if their content was carefully diagnosed by Shai. So that's a question I'll need to ask him. they were found in these oval-shaped structures. Last question. Yes.
Psalm 110, verse 1. Sit at my right hand until I make your enemies.
And enemies, yeah, footstool, yeah, yeah. So, some people are not happy with me, with Adam's, actually this is Adam Zertal's PowerPoint presentation that I made some changes to, but the claim that Egypt affected, or the pagan Egypt affected our Bible or our verses in the scripture is something that sometimes disturbs people. And I want to say that Egypt was at that time an empire, and the language, the symbols were symbols that were used by everyone. They didn't necessarily have a pagan importance to them, but they were the way that people expressed themselves in different fields, in spiritual and economic and so on. And so you had Israelites with scarabs that are clearly Egyptian and originate from the Egyptian mythology of that beetle and so on. So these were things that were just part of the way of expression at that time.
Actually, if you look at it, even circumcision still started with the Egyptians. You can read the whole myth in the book 17 of the Book of the Dead.
There are pictures of circumcision.
Greeks actually circumcising
Yeah.
Teenage boys.
Yeah. Oh, so do we have the second presentation ready, Daniel? Good. Okay. So, by the way, if you want to go to the restrooms and come back, that's fine. I won't be insulted. Etty will, but I won't be. So no problem. So I'll just fast forward through the. Oh, this is the wrong one. Too many clickers. Okay. So we let's talk about the verses that refer to the building of Joshua's altar. So I just want to give a very short background. The Israelites are on the eastern bank of the Jordan River. They're about to cross the Jordan and go into the Promised Land. And before they do, Moses commands the Israelites to do two things. One thing is before we do that, Moses commands the Israelites to proclaim the blessings and the curses over two mountains, Mount Gerizim and Mount Ebal. This is Deuteronomy 11. What does this proclamation mean exactly? This verse doesn't talk about it, but when we continue on to Deuteronomy 27, we actually have a very detailed explanation of what Moses expects the Israelites to do as they enter into the land of Israel. Now Moses is concerned. He's concerned because he knows that when the Israelites are going into the land, he's not going to be with them. And they're going to go into a different reality where they need a military, they need economy, they need politics, they need farming and agriculture. And what he's afraid of is that this physical world will basically take them away from the spirituality of the desert, so to say. Another thing that he's afraid of is the Canaanites around them with their paganism, with their immorality. And so the book of Deuteronomy, if I had to summarize it in a few words, is if you behave, you'll get a carrot. Who wants a carrot? If you misbehave, God will curse you and punish you. Okay? Now, he doesn't just stop there. He's actually asking them to do this understanding or to apply this understanding on two very important mountains near the city of Shechem. And so we have the first, as I said, in Deuteronomy 11. Deuteronomy 27, we have two commandments. One commandment is for the Israelites to go into the land and immediately build a stone altar made out of uncut stones. The gentleman that was here just talked about that, okay? Uncut stones. This is interesting. And what do we do with this stone altar, we do a barbecue party. Yeah. You have to know Jews, especially in Israel, every time there's a celebration, barbecue party. Why is there a celebration? What are they celebrating? The land. They're entering into the land. Guys, they went through hundreds of years in Egypt, 10 plagues, Exodus, 40 years of wandering in the desert. Why did they do that? They did that because they wanted to go into the land of Israel. We finally entered the land of Israel. What do? Barbecue party. The next commandment that Moshe Rabbeinu, that Moses commands the Israelites. Whoops. Sorry about that. I knew it would happen. The second is, can you hear me? Daniel. The second thing, I think I'm okay, I'll manage. The second thing is, after building an altar, is doing a ceremony of blessings and curses at Mount Gerizim. Now, what do we have? We have 12 tribes, 6 tribes on one mountain, 6 tribes on the other. We have the Levites in the middle, and the Levites are reading out a list of 12 curses. Okay? Each curse, the Israelites shout, Amen! Okay, let's look at them. Cursed is anyone who makes an idol, a thing detestable to the Lord, the work of skilled hands, and sets it up in secret. Then all the people shall say, Amen. What does this curse remind you? 10 Commandments. Let's read the second one. Cursed is anyone who dishonors their father or mother. 10 Commandments. Okay? This is not a coincidence. What we are seeing here is a reenactment of Mount Sinai. Okay, we are signing another covenant with God in the land of Israel. Only this time we're doing it willingly, not like in Mount Sinai. Mount Sinai, we were like, whoa, Moses, you talk to him. That was okay, but here we're in the land of Israel and we are accepting God's kingdom over us willingly. We have more curses that deal with morality, that deal with sexual relationships in the family. This is, again, that fear of the Canaanite influence that Moses is afraid of. And after 11 curses, we have the last curse. Cursed is anyone who does not uphold the words of this law by carrying them out. Then all the people shall say, Amen. Why do we have 12 curses? 12 tribes. Okay? The numbers here are very important. We have 6 here, 12. Everybody is part of this covenant. And not just the elders, not just the Levites or the important people. The whole people of Israel are there. The women, the children, the elders, and even foreigners. We actually see another group of people that's part of this covenant that we don't know exactly who they are. Are they Canaanites? Are they who they are? Okay? Ask me at the end of the presentation. Joshua implements the commandment after conquering Jericho, after conquering Ai. He goes and implements Moses' commandment. So, that Joshua built on Mount Ebal an altar to the Lord, the God of Israel, as Moses, the servant of the Lord, had commanded the Israelites. He built it according to what is written in the book of the law of Moses, an altar of uncut stones, on which no iron tool had been used. On it they offered to the Lord burnt offerings and sacrificed fellowship offerings. Barbecue party. And then Implementation of the ceremony. There, in the presence of the Israelites, Joshua wrote on the stones a copy of the law of Moses. All the Israelites were there, elders, officials, judges, and so on and so forth. And we have a clear implementation of the ceremony of the blessings and the curses on Mount Gerizim and Mount Ebal. Now, we were told to build a stone altar. How do you build a stone altar? Exodus. If you make an altar of stones for me, do not build it with dressed stones, for you will defile it if you use a tool on it. Okay? This is what you said. And do not go up to my altar on steps, or your private parts may be exposed. So, we don't have stairs going up, we have something else that leads to the altar. So, we all believe in this. We all know that these verses are describing a real event that Joshua did. But there are some people that disagree. Historians acknowledge that after more than 2 centuries of archaeological research, there is still an absence of evidence for the presence of Israel in Egypt. It's hard to accept, but scholars today are convinced that Israel was not present in Egypt, nor wandered in Sinai. They did not conquer Canaan, nor inherited to the 12 tribes. And the Israelite religion did not adopt monotheism on Mount Sinai, but at the end of the monarchical period. Okay, remember those minimalists that I told you about? My Bible teacher, that's where they... So, we have already reviewed Adam Zertal's discovery of the Israelite invasion, not in the area of Jericho, but further north at the area of the Tirzah Valley, corresponding with the verse that the water of the Jordan River stopped exactly in that area. But Adam Zertal, as I mentioned, surveyed the Jordan Valley, and we spoke about this, and we are at Mount Ebal. So, now what we're going to do is we're going to concentrate on Joshua's altar and the discovery. Adam Zertal arrives in 1980, April of 1980, on Mount Ebal. And again, remember, he doesn't believe that the altar exists, because the story of Joshua in his mind is totally fabricated, never happened. And he's walking on the eastern slopes of Mount Ebal. Now, you have to understand, Christian archaeologists came in the late 19th century, early 20th century to look for the altar. Because they were Christian, they believed that the Bible is describing real historical events. Where did they look for the altar? They went to the valley between Mount Gerizim and Mount Ebal, where they projected in their mind the ceremony happened. They connected the ceremony, the commandment of the ceremony, to the commandment of building the altar. And so their conclusion was that the altar should have been on Mount Ebal, on the slopes of where the ceremony happened. That's where they went to look for it, and they didn't find it. Okay? Minimalists came in the 1970s. Of course, you didn't find it. It was never there. Adam Zertal, minimalist, comes into Mount Ebal to map and survey, not looking for the altar, because it doesn't exist. And you can imagine yourself going into the altar, into the structure, and Adam is looking at the ground, and he sees lots of pottery shreds from the settlement period, from the early Iron Age period. And the more he walks into this compound, to the highest place, he sees that there is more and more pottery, until he reaches the top, the highest place inside this foot structure, which is right here, this area. Again, you see all the different, you saw the foot structures, so now you understand. We have an outer wall, inner division, and as he arrives here, he sees a pile of stone. And mixed with the stones are pottery shreds, a lot of pottery shreds, again dating from the early Iron Age period, again around the year 1300, 1250 BC. Adam Zertal is really, really curious, and he decides that he wants to excavate here. So 1982, first season of excavations, goes on to 1989. And what Adam Zertal does, he basically peels off the outer layer of stones that were found in this pile, and a structure emerges. Now, this structure basically is divided into several parts. A rectangular platform that was sealed on the top, a ramp that went up all the way to the top part of the rectangular room. The room does not have a door, no door, so it's really weird. And two courts on both sides of the ramp, and inside these courts and outside, a lot of circular installations on the ground with complete vessels that were laid inside these circular installations. Here is a sketch, another sketch of this structure. So you see again a ramp, you see a secondary ramp on one side and some sort of a porch on the other, circular installations with vessels on them outside, inside the courts and outside. So Adam Zertal obviously is very curious about this site. What is it? Who built it? What did it serve? And as we mentioned earlier, he goes to the libraries. He looks at books. He looks at in Egypt, Lebanon, Syria, Babylon, for anything that looks like this structure, and he cannot find a parallel. So he sits down at the dining hall of the community of Shavei Shomron, and he sketches a sketch on the table, on the page, of the structure. Sorry, that's a few slides later. So before the sketch, he continues to dig inside the structure. Remember I told you that the structure was sealed from the top, right? So he opens that seal and he starts digging inside. And he digs and digs and digs, and what he finds is 4 layers of bones and ashes. Okay, so we have a room with no door filled with bones and ashes. The bones are sent to the Hebrew University in Jerusalem. They're analyzed, and they all belong to sheep, goats, cows, and fallow deer. What's interesting for an archaeologist is not just the bones they find, but the bones they don't find. No pig bones, no donkey bones, no horse bones. And this is, according to many archaeologists, a clear sign of finding an Israelite site. Also, Adam Zertal points out to the fact that the bones are all bones of young animals, not old animals. Open the Bible. So, Adam Zertal continues to excavate all the way down until he reaches the bottom of this room, and at the center, the exact geometric center of that room is a circular installation that was built first before everything else. So let's go through the history of this structure. Someone came there 3,300 years ago and built this circular structure, and then the second stage is this big structure that you saw that was built on top of the older structure. And then the third stage, according to Adam Zertal, was an intentional covering of the site with stones. You know, so many groups asked me when we're there, how can a 3,300-year-old structure stand for so long? And my answer is, they covered it with stones. It kept the whole structure intact for us to discover it. So the question is, why did they cover it? And then Adam Zertal, as I said, went through the structure. He found many things like jewelry, gold and silver. He found scarabs. The scarabs date to the reign of Thutmose III. This is actually a new dating because the person that dated the scarabs during the excavation actually dated them to the reign of Ramses II. But we just had a new dating of these scarabs, and the person who did it said that that both scarabs belong to the reign of Thutmose III, which brings the site to an earlier time. We also found a stone dice, and this is really a mystery. We don't know what it was used for. Apparently, something connected to the ceremonies that were done there. Someone even told me maybe that's the Urim and Thummim. Okay, but we really don't know what it is. And lots of pieces, and a pumice chalice. Okay, this pumice chalice actually held in my hand several years ago in Jerusalem. I was so excited about it. This is the second one that was found in the world. The first one was found at the mines of Serabit el-Khadem in the Sinai. And so we have an interesting connection to Sinai. And we also found lots of pieces of plaster. Now, this is very, very interesting because these plaster pieces, or plaster in general, doesn't exist in most of the early Iron Age period sites. But when we look at the Bible, we see that plaster is mentioned both in Deuteronomy and in the book of Joshua as part of the ceremony of building the altar and writing the law. And so our hope is that one day we might be able to find something on these plaster pieces. I'm going to talk a bit about what's going on right now with the findings. So, as I mentioned earlier, Adam Zertal is really curious. He doesn't know what this is. He makes a sketch of this structure at the dining hall of Shavei Shomron, and a religious Jew passes behind Adam Zertal. And he asks Zertal, "Professor, is this the structure you found on Mount Ebal?" And Adam Zertal says, "Yes, and I don't know what it is. I looked everywhere, in Babylon, in Assyria, in Egypt, everywhere, and I couldn't find any parallel to this type of structure." And he sees the religious Jew all excited, and he runs away, and he comes back with a book, a Jewish book that is part of the Mishnah, the oral Torah of the Jewish people from the Second Temple, after the Second Temple period. And he opens the book at the page describing the different vessels, the different structures in the Second Temple in Jerusalem. And Adam Zertal is looking at the page, and he sees an altar, a Jewish altar in the temple, which obviously contained bones and ashes inside. He sees a ramp going up to the platform, and he sees secondary ramps on both sides of the altar. Now, he describes in his book, A Nation Born, how his whole life just crumbles down. He is in total shock because for the first time, he finds a parallel to this structure that he found. And not only that, it seems as if this structure is actually Israelite, clearly continuing the tradition. Think about it. This picture is the altar of the Second Temple. That's more than 1,000 years after Joshua. Okay, so think about that. The tradition just passed on for so long. But I think that the biggest shock for him was the understanding that he actually found Joshua's altar. There's no other option. He looked at this Jewish, religious Jew, and he told him, "You understand what this is? This is Joshua's altar. It has to be. And if this is Joshua's altar, then Joshua existed, and Moses existed, and the Exodus happened." And the religious Jew looks at him and says, of course. So that was a major discovery. Israel was shocked. Newspapers, articles, everybody talked about it. And obviously, after the advertising of this amazing discovery, came the reaction. Now, the reaction was very one-sided and was very, I think, was very predicted, because there was very strong opposition to Adam Zertal. The opposition was, I would say, on two levels. One, political, because the site is located in Samaria, which is regarded by the left wing in Israel as an area that shouldn't be under Israeli sovereignty, that it belongs to the Palestinians. They immediately criticized Adam Zertal for even excavating in that area. He describes that in length in his book, and it's really, that's not professional, right? I mean, talk about the archaeological site itself. And then when you refer to the archaeological criticism, Adam Zertal constantly said they ignored my discovery. They didn't give me any other suggestions, real suggestions, serious suggestions to what I found. And this was something that I saw in his eyes. He was a happy man, but he had such sadness and disappointment from the academic world. You have to understand that if this is Joshua's altar, then the academic world, not Calvary University, but the rest of the academic world has a big problem. We have a lot of professors that built careers on this, that this didn't happen, wrote books that it didn't happen, and suddenly this all goes, where? Or as Professor Steger said, if there is an altar on Mount Ebal, as Zertal claims, we biblical scholars should all go back to kindergarten. So this is a really a critical find in Israel, and this is my revenge at my Bible teacher in high school, and to bring this to folks all over. Before I continue, are you too tired? Do you want me to finish, or because the exciting stuff is coming? To continue? Okay. So. Adam Zertal finished his excavation in 1989. And what do you do when you finish an excavation? You write the final report. The final report is crucial because that starts the dialogue in the scientific world and eventually brings the discovery into encyclopedias, books, educational systems, and so on. In order to write a final report, you need money. Archaeologists are not rich. They get their money from grants from universities. And I don't know if you know that, but Israeli archaeologists that excavate in Judea and Samaria are excommunicated by not just international universities and archaeology schools, but also universities in Israel. So, believe it or not, the final report on the altar wasn't published. But 5 years ago, a donor from America gave us enough money to write the final report, and it's being written right now as we speak, and it's going to be published at the beginning of 2027. Now I'm going to share with you one interesting point about the discovery. As I mentioned earlier, Adam Zertal thought that this structure was all built during the early Iron Age period, during the reign of Ramses II. He supported the late Exodus theory. Okay, I'll just very briefly say, among the scholars that believe that the Exodus actually happened, there is a dispute if it happened in the year 1270 during the reign of Ramses II, because the Bible clearly says that the Israelites built Pitom and Ramses. And you have the traditional Jewish Christian view that the Exodus happened around the year 1450, which is 200 years earlier. And so Adam Zertal believed that this finding proves the late Egyptian Exodus, the Exodus of 1270. And now we actually have many carbon-14 carbon-14 tests that we did in the site. And there's a clear finding that the early stage of the site started in the late Bronze Age, which means that this goes closer to the traditional view of the Exodus. So this is interesting, and it's going to be in the final report. Another thing that happens is that Israel signs the Oslo Agreements. The Oslo Agreements, for you young people, are the agreements between Israel and the Palestinian Authority. The idea was that eventually the area of Judea and Samaria, the biblical heartland of Israel, will become a Palestinian state or some sort of a Palestinian autonomy. That area was basically divided to area A, B, and C. A is under full Palestinian control, C under full Israeli control, and B, military control of Israel, civilian control of the Palestinian Authority. Someone in the Israeli army, the chief archaeology officer, made sure that the border between area B and area C is going to exclude the altar from Israeli control. Okay? Now, what that did is that it stopped any further research of the site by Israeli archaeologists, and it also created a situation where Israelis cannot freely come to the site. They actually need to coordinate it with the army and come with a military convoy. Okay? Now, I don't know about you, but most schools would not go to that effort of organizing a visit for their students to visit that site. It made the site basically deserted. Very small amounts of people would visit it. The site started disintegrating. The stones started falling inside. The Palestinians actually vandalized the site several times, graffiti it, burned tires inside of the altar. I actually came once with a group, and as I arrived, I saw a big bulldozer that was bulldozing a road right by the stone compound of the site. And you know why they did that? They were planning to build a neighborhood on top of the foot structure and the altar, believe it or not. Okay? You understand why? So I had to do something. I went to Dr. Shai Bar and I said, Shai, can we excavate here? We have to bring this site back to the knowledge of the people and to the newspapers. And Shai said, Aaron, I can't excavate here. This is area B. Remember I told you, area B. So I went to another archaeologist, Dr. Scott Stripling from Houston, Texas, a real Texan. And I said to myself, he's a Texan, maybe I'll get a different answer. And I said, Scott, have you ever been to Joshua's altar? And he said, no. And I asked him, do you want me to take you there? He said, yes. So I took him. And this is a video from that visit. Hello, everyone. This is Aaron Lipkin, and I'm here with Dr. Scott Stripling.
Hello, everybody.
And just behind us is one of the most amazing archaeological structures that were discovered, Joshua's altar. Scott, what can you say about this?
Well, this is one of the most incredible sites in Israel. It ties in with the earliest Israelite heritage, and this rectangular altar was built by people who wanted to venerate what God had done in this place. Underneath it is a round altar that we're interested in exploring also. When people come to a place like this, they connect with their faith heritage. And when we
Scott fell in love with the site. You should have seen him, just like Adam Zertal. He went into the foot structure, immediately started seeing the pottery shreds all over, and like a small kid in a toy store, you know. And we stood there. He looked at the altar. He went inside, and he was so excited. And I said, Scott, can you excavate here? Can you continue the research? Can you do something? He said, Aaron, I can't. This is Area B. If I want to excavate here, according to the Oslo agreements, I need to get a permission from the Palestinian Authority. They'll never give me that permission. And even if they did, Israel will not let me excavate the site because it's under Palestinian Authority control. And they don't want that. So I can't do anything. But you, Aaron, you're not an archaeologist. So I looked at him and I said, what do you mean? He said, the Islamic Waqf destroyed Temple Mount. And all the rubble that they broke, they threw in the Kidron Valley. And archaeologists had to come and sift that archaeological dump and find remains from the temple. Adam Zertal excavated in the 1980s. And when he took things and sifted them, after sifting them, he threw the dump into the valley. What you're going to do, Aaron, you're going to take that dump and move it to a safe location, and I'm going to come with my crew, and we're going to go through that material. Maybe Adam Zertal missed something. Now, when a Texan says that you need to do something, you say, yeehaw. So, I had to first come and locate the dumps, and here is a picture of one of those dumps, and the dump is located east of the structure. This is the main dump. So they actually brought the material from the altar, sifted it, and threw it into the valley. After locating the dumps, we brought volunteers because taking that dump is very careful. You have to do it very carefully, not to touch the archaeological areas that weren't excavated yet. So we had to do it by hand and very carefully. So here's a picture of the volunteers that were bringing the dump, the material with buckets hard here to the huge sacks. And we moved the materials to Shavei Shomron. Scott came with his crew in December of 2019. They built sifting stations, wet sifting, dry sifting, flotation devices for organic matter, metal detectors, and they started working on the materials. After 4 or 5 days, I get a phone call from Scott, and he says, Aaron, get over here. We found something. I drive over there, and I approach Scott, and Scott opens his hand, and he shows me a piece of metal. Now, I'm looking at this metal, and I see that it's a strip of metal that is folded. And I ask Scott, what is it? And Scott says, Aaron, I don't know. We're going to send it to the Hebrew University. So it's being sent to the Hebrew University. The Hebrew University are trying to open that piece of metal, and it starts to break. So they stop, and we send it to Prague in Europe. There's a special department there that their expertise is ancient findings made out of metal that need to be scanned with tomography or X-ray. So they scan this small piece of metal, or as they said, lead, a lead tablet, inside and outside. So we don't have to open it. We actually have a picture of the scan from the inside. And The scans start to being sent to Scott, and the guys in Prague are saying to Scott, we are seeing clear indentations in the lead. And this is not something that was done coincidentally. These are indentations. Someone engraved something on the metal. And and these are the first pictures that came to Scott. And Scott is sending these scans to Professor Gershon Galil from the Haifa University and Dr. Peter Vanderveen. The scans are being checked, and I get a phone call from Scott, and Scott says, Aaron, I have good news. We are identifying letters on the metal. And it's not Persian, it's not Greek, it's ancient Hebrew. Now, this is amazing. Now, Scott says, Aaron, the pictures leaked, so we have to go on a press conference quickly and announce the finding. And he does a press conference in Houston, and obviously it's 1 hour, so I won't let you see the whole thing. I edited it and made it smaller with the places where he mentions my name.
First of all, I'd like to say a word about Aaron Lipkin. It was Aaron and I who originally dreamed or brainstormed this idea on the last day of the Shiloh excavation in 2019. And it was going to take someone on that end to logistically help pull things off, to relocate the dump material and just do so many logistical things. And so Aaron and I dreamed about this, and so it was that initial collaboration that was key to bringing this to fruition. So thank you, Aaron. Working on the inside of the tablet, we recovered 40 Hebrew letters, and this is in a script that we would call proto-alphabetic script. Sometimes if it's from the Sinai, it's referred to as Proto-Sinaitic, or sometimes folks would refer to this as Proto-Canaanite. We will call it Proto-Alphabetic script. 11 of these letters are alephs, the first letter in the Hebrew alphabet, and they are all the archaic form. This is older than Paleo-Hebrew. This predates Paleo-Hebrew. And so you have an ox head that is morphing into an aleph. And in the 23-word English translation, which you're looking at, the word curse, arur in Hebrew, appears 10 times. And ladies and gentlemen, the name Yahweh appears twice. We now have the name Yahweh, the biblical God of Israel, in an inscription dating from LB2, which is earlier than many skeptics would argue that the Bible existed or that there was even the ability to write down a sacred text. Okay, this is Stuart Peck from Appian Media. Yes, we did excavate through about 30% of the material, Stu, and we would love to excavate through more, and hopefully we will have generous donors that will enable us to do that. This is all, of course, a very expensive process, and we would love to do more work on Mount Ebal in the future. This was the test, if you will, to find out what was in the dump piles, and we, the day that Aaron Lipkin and I, last day we went to look at the site to inaugurate the project. As we pulled away and stopped and looked back, it had rained a little earlier, and there was a rainbow over the altar, and instead of a pot of gold, we found a pot of lead at the end of the rainbow. Okay, we have another.
In Kansas for that joke. Anyway, so I have to say, I looked at this and I felt so amazed and so blessed to be able to be part of this initiative. And you have to understand, archaeologists work all their lives and they don't find these things. And Aaron Lipkin came with a few volunteers and we got this. So let's talk a bit about the tablet. This is the text that Professor Gershon Galil and Peter Vanderveen published in their peer-reviewed article in Heritage Science. And you're more than welcome to check it on the internet. And I'm just going to briefly say a few words. First of all, we have the name of the Hebrew God. And the problem is that this tablet was not found in the normal excavation. when you find something in normal excavation, you know which layer it's in, you can date it clearly. And here we have an object that was found in an archaeological dump. So there's really no way of knowing exactly from which period the tablet was. What we do know is that the dump was brought from inside the altar, and we know that the altar is a site that was in use only during a certain period, which is, again, the late Bronze, early Iron Age period. So there's a good chance that that's from the same time. But that's one issue that's critical. The fact that we have the name of God, YHW, is something that is a big revolution, because according to the academic world and the different studies, the belief in YHW came later, hundreds of years later. And here we actually have the name in the time that the Bible describes that it was in use. So that's one thing. The second thing is that the fact that that it was probably brought from the altar shows that the altar is clearly Israelite, because no other nation in the land of Israel worshipped that God. We also have the name El in the same document. So El and YHW, again, something that breaks the understandings of the academic world until now. Another thing that really the most important thing is that Israelites were literate. This is something that also was claimed in the academic world. There's no document from the time of Moses and Joshua that shows that the Israelites could read and write. The fact that we wrote on parchments, we just opened a big Torah scroll that's written on the leather, the skin of an animal. So these things don't last more than a few centuries. It's a miracle we found the Dead Sea Scrolls that are 2,000 years old. How can you find scrolls from 3,000 years ago? But anyway, here we have a clear proof that Israelites were literate and could have written the Bible, could have passed the traditions on to later generations. So there's so many things that we can talk about here, linguistic aspects and so on, but I will continue on. This is the peer-reviewed article that was written. It's about the inscription on the inside of the tablet. There is also an inscription outside. The peer-reviewed article on the outside of the inscription is going to be probably published around 2027 by Dr. Peter van der Ven, because they had a fight, he and Gershon Galil, so this time it's just Peter van der Ven. And what's interesting is that the first article deals with an inscription that you cannot see with your eye because it's inside. The inscription outside is clear because you can actually see it with your bare eyes. So this is going to be probably the most important article out of the two. Scott Stripling actually said that how'd you say, in hindsight, he would probably publish the outside first and then the inside. But, that's what they did, and so we're good with that. And let's talk about the Hebrew script. So what we see here is the modern Hebrew version, the modern Hebrew script. You see that from your side? This is modern Hebrew. And modern Hebrew comes from Second Temple Hebrew. This is Dead Sea Scrolls script. And this is how we wrote in Hebrew in the time of Jesus. Okay? But if you go to the First Temple period, the script is different. And as you go earlier than that, you already see something that looks weird, and that is the letters become pictures. So the word Aleph is an aluf, an ox. The word Bet is a bayit, a house or a home. The letter Daled is a fish, a dag. So every picture starts with the letter that it describes. And the letters that we saw on the tablet are the earliest form of alphabet. Ready to see it? This is the inner side. I don't know about you guys, but it's not easy to read. This is a close-up, and this is the outer side, okay? This is what you're going to see on the second article. The text is the same text. There's just a slight difference. Now, this is how you write the name of God, YHW. Now, I don't know about you guys, but as an Israeli Jew that reads and writes in Hebrew, this was a big surprise, okay? This is not how I read the name of God. And this actually really disturbed me. I mean, you know, how, first of all, just so you know, this is Yud, Y. This is Hey, H, a person standing saying, hey. And, no, seriously, that's where it comes from. And this is a 10 pole, a Vav, Yud, Hey, Vav. So it's written from left to right. It's not even from right to left. So that's actually easy to solve because the direction of writing was kind of mixed until the time of King David, King Solomon. So you would read from right to left or from left to right, or as the ox plows. There are different ways. So that's easy to solve. That's not a problem. But to see that God's name is actually this really shocked me, and it actually brought me to an interesting insight that I want to share with you. Ready? Okay. One of the things that really made me surprised as an Israeli who was secular and became religious is attending a synagogue and seeing a weird ceremony that happens every day in the morning. It's not the regular prayer of a cantor and the congregation, you know, in prayer and in dialogue. In the middle of the prayer, the cantor stops, and you have Kohanim, or descendants of Aaron. My wife, by the way, is the son of a Kohen. So she's the daughter of a priest. I need to be very careful, be very respectful here. So we have the priests that are coming out of the congregation, and they're going to the front of the synagogue, and they're turning to Jerusalem, and they're saying, "Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has commanded us to bless his people Israel with love." And they turn around, and they stand like this. Sorry. Like this, in front of the congregation, and they say the priestly blessing, which you all know, right? I'll show you a short video from the Western Wall Tunnel, from the Wailing Wall. 1 second. Okay. Ready? This is the blessing that the priests say, and now the cantor says word by word the priestly blessing. You see under the talit, they do with this finger. Here's my insight. The Bible says to the priests, so they will put my name on the Israelites and I will bless them. And what I think is that when the priests are standing and doing this type of standing, this type of symbol, what they're doing is they're literally putting God's name on the congregation, on the Israelites. We have the hay, the person standing with the hands in the air, and we have two letters, Yud and Vav. You know, I didn't figure yet how to solve this topic of, you know, what's a Yud and what's a Vav, and why in this symbol. But I think that this is the reason why the priests stand and bless the congregation. What do you think? Interesting connection. Thank you. So, I want to finish with a question that I always like to bring up, and that is, why is the altar built on Mount Ebal, the mountain of curse? Okay, Mount Ebal is the mountain of curse. Mount Gerizim is the mountain of blessing. If I was Moses, I would command the Israelites to build the altar on the good mountain, right? But the altar is on the bad mountain. And I think I want to propose a reason. And first of all, before I do that, we have to understand the whole topic of Mount Gerizim and Mount Ebal in the constant context of the ceremony of blessings and curses. The message of the ceremony is that we have a freedom of choice. God is giving us the choice between choosing to go His way and being blessed, or not to go according to His will and His laws and be cursed. This is the title. So, why is the altar on Mount Ebal? If you choose to walk in God's way and you're blessed, good for you. But if you choose not to go in God's way and you're cursed and things don't work, everything falls down, nothing goes well, there's a certain point where a person stops for a second and says, I'm sorry. Bring me back to you. So the altar of God is not waiting on the righteous mountain. It's waiting on the evil mountain for the Israelite to come back to God. It's a beacon. You understand? Thank you. Questions? Yes.
Frankie Snyder believes that name of God on the cursed tablet shoots the documentary hypothesis. Do you have the same opinion?
Yes, definitely. I mean, I don't. First, yeah. Frankie Snyder, who is part of the archaeological team of Scott Stripling, who actually found the tablet in the material, believes that the fact that we found God's name, YHW, engraved on that tablet, totally breaks the documentary hypothesis, which means that the Bible was written by different scribes at different times, and that the name YHW was used by certain scribes and not by all of them. So I agree with her that this is definitely smashing that. Yes, Jerry.
It hasn't been clear to me, been there with you several times, but so you found this round altar that's cited as the original altar. So what is the historical relationship or theory about how the highly developed model that becomes replicated in the temple?
The temple.
You know, is there a hypothesis
Yes.
about the time span and also the motivation to go beyond the original smaller round altar.
Yeah.
So help me out.
Okay, so first of all, we have, as I mentioned, we have 2 layers of history in this site. We have the late Bronze Age, and we have the early Iron Age. The big building that you saw there is from the early Iron Age period. In other words, from the time of the judges. The circular installation that you saw at the center of the room is from the late Bronze Age. And according to Scott Stripling, when the people that built the big building, they put the circular installation at the center of the altar, the big altar, in order to venerate it. Okay? So, according to Scott, the original Joshua's altar is the actual circular building that you saw at the center. And later on, because of the importance of the site, during the time of the judges, an altar was built on top of that, and that became a central place of worship at the end of the time of judges. Now, we have a problem because when we look at the Bible doesn't describe a major sacrificial platform on Mount Ebal during the time of Shiloh and Samuel. There's no description of that. So I want to say 2 things. First of all, when I spoke to Tzvi Konigsberg, remember that religious Jew that came with the Mishnah and showed Adam Zertal the picture? So Tzvi believes that there is actually a verse in the Bible that mentions the presence of an altar on Mount Ebal, and he showed me that verse. Do you want me to tell you about that? Okay. So Joshua 8 is the chapter that talks about the building of the altar. You open Joshua 9, and you see a story about the Gibeonites. Okay? The Gibeonites, just for those that don't remember, cheated the Israelites and Joshua. They told them that they were not Canaanite, that they came from far away. And so Joshua was willing to sign a peace agreement with them, and then he found out that they cheated him. So he punishes them. He makes them not slaves, water bearers and wood choppers, right? Where? Where? At the altar of Adonai. Mizbeach Adonai. So Tzvi Konigsberg claims that, one chapter, chapter 8, is Joshua's altar. Chapter 9 already has a new stage in the site, becomes the altar of Adonai, a platform, a major platform on Mount Ebal. I actually spoke with my wife about this because we tried to find other solutions to this. And it seems as if there might be 2 more reasons why an altar was built on Mount Ebal during the early Iron Age period. We have Shiloh. Shiloh is the central place. And 2 things happen in Shiloh. One, we have a corrupt priestly family that is making the Israelites stop going to Shiloh. So in that case, if that happens, people need an alternate site. Okay, so this could be a solution to why a building was built on Mount Ebal during that time. Another solution could be the Philistine conquest of Shiloh and its destruction. If we don't have a tabernacle in Shiloh because the Philistines destroyed it, and the area of Shiloh and southward is taken by the Philistines, we need to establish a new site of worship. And Mount Ebal is smack in the middle of Ephraim and Manasseh, a very safe Israelite site area to build an altar. Again, these are all theories, but I hope I answered your question. Yes?
So, is there any perhaps I missed it, but is there any theorization as to the function of the tablet? I mean, they're really small, they're written on lead, other than, I don't know, the immediate one that comes to mind as a college professor is, reading it to unruly young men at the altar site. That's a joke. But, like what is it used for? Is it like something that the priest reads from? Is it, like, what's its function?
That's a good question, and we can only theorize. I always joke around that it might be a very, like an Israelite woman who went to the market in Shechem and bought a curse amulet because her husband didn't wash the dishes. So, I mean, I joke around about it. But it seems as if, I mean, this is Gershon Galil, Professor Gershon Galil said that the fact that the tablet was folded in the ancient Middle East is a show of some sort of a signing of a document, maybe even a covenant of some sort. And the fact that we found a curse tablet on the mountain of curse is interesting. I wrote a whole article about why I think that this is a document that's connected to the ceremony of blessings and curses. So you can check it out on the internet. But I actually showed certain parallels between the number of times that the word arur, cursed, appears on the tablet and in the Bible, in the ceremony of blessings and curses, and many other things. So I personally believe that it is connected to the ceremony, but again, it's only theories.
Later tablet found anywhere that would indicate or have some sort of parallel or give you any kind of clue. There's nothing like this that we've discovered in any other site, or even that's used in modern day.
So there's no parallel, no writing, no parallel writing on a lead tablet anywhere else during that time. If you go like 1,000 years, 2,000 years later, you can find these tablets in Europe, in Lebanon, and many other locations in the world. And actually, I do have to mention that many archaeologists obviously oppose this interpretation. And I think that the last proposal that came from an Israeli archaeologist is that it's a fishing sink. Okay? Because as you know, you fish on the mountain ridge, right? I mean, but that's basically the proposal of one of the archaeologists.
He needs to go back to kindergarten.
No fish. Oh. Yes.
This may be going down a rabbit trail, but you mentioned carbon-14 dating. And the half-life of the carbon isotope is about the same age as Abraham was when God started Israel, started the Hebrew nation, and I wanted to see if you had a comment about that timing.
Yeah. I know that there are claims about the carbon-14 being inaccurate from around the year 1200 or 1300 and earlier, but it's not my field of expertise. I can tell you that Shai Bar, the archaeologist that is finalizing the final report that Adam Zertal excavated, totally relies on the conventional understanding of the carbon-14 results. And again, I have to say, it was a big surprise for him to see that the site was in use in two separate periods with a certain stop in the middle. Also, Shai writes in his report that the second structure, the big structure, is clearly a cultic structure. It's some sort of a spiritual worshiping site, clearly because of all the offering installations that are surrounding the site. Not just the bones and ashes and everything, but the circular installations. but the carbon dating shows clearly that there are 2 periods of time that the site is in use, and he, as an archaeologist that has to stick to the facts, says that the second structure is cultic. When you ask Scott Stripling, he will say, of course, the second one is cultic, but they put it in the middle. They put the oldest structure in the middle of the big structure. What are they trying to convey? You know, they're venerating the older site. And by the way, in the Bible, the altar of Joshua is just a simple altar for a barbecue party. It's not not a big altar for a long period of time. So this actually fits the biblical narrative. Okay, one last question.
How much of the dump site is
I think how much of the dump is still at the mountain? I think that we only cleared maybe 30 to 40% of it. I do have to say that, we talked about the dump not being a good place for stratigraphy, for the layers. But there is one thing that we can assume, and that is that the upper layers of the dump are from the deepest layers in the altar. And so, and that's what we scrapped. We scrapped basically the inner levels that were brought from the altar. So we can assume that the tablet was put inside, maybe even inside the installation, and that's also where all the pumice chalice and the earrings and everything was found in that important circular installation in the middle. Thank you very much for coming. This was a long lecture, but I hope you enjoyed it. And now you can become professors of archaeology, like me. Thank you, and have a blessed day, a blessed week. And God bless Israel. God bless America.
Thank you so much for coming, Aaron. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll make him an honorary professor. How'd that be?
I'll send
Thank
you
you for
an
coming,
email,
everybody.
And we'll set up a time and get together
come.
on a Zoom call.
Oh, yeah, some of Aaron's books are over here on the table, so help yourself. Take a look, and they'll be glad to take care of you.